What kind of memory it is consuming.
My blender is crashing.
And I didn't even save the project.
You make sure you save the project first.
So this Blender session video is an implementation of a course I've been taking on Skillshare, which is filmmaking, conveying story through video. This video is an output of the template I could come up with. So do let me know if you enjoy it. Cheers. So proceeding with Blender. ये week के लिए मैं video ढूंढ रहा था and I found this amazing video. Again we are using the same channel Ducky 3D. I think this is a pretty amazing channel with some pretty amazing tutorials. Easy to follow tutorials. So that is what we are going to follow. So here's the video I found. Looks pretty cool, looks pretty interesting. Now to break down this scene into its elements, we of course have the base. I think there are multiple layers of base here. One is the ground base with certain details, with certain bumps on it. We of course have the trees and we have this neon door kind of rectangle here, and we have some particles flowing in the air, and we of course have this fog kind of volume here. So I think हम ये recreate कर सकते हैं now that we have listed down our elements. Let's go ahead and delete all the default elements. We don't need those. And let's start by saving the project first, because I remember the last time I actually forgot to save the project and all the efforts went in vain. So let's go ahead and add a plane. Here's a plane. Shift A, plane, scale it to the factor of 8. So we have the base plane ready, and now we need to go ahead and add trees to it. We are going to use the default plugin which is available in Blender, or we need to go into the preferences or the add-ons, and we need to search for tree, the add curved sapling tree gen. This is what we are looking for. Just enable it and we are done. We can go to add menu, and under the curve we'll find the sapling tree generator, and that's it. We have a tree here. Now we can actually go ahead and customize the tree. We have certain parameters here. We have different kinds of trees we could include. So let's go ahead with Japanese maple. This is how it looks like. And under the settings here, we can go to the leaves. We can customize leaves. Show leaves. Under the leaf scale, we can increase it as per our liking. This looks good. So here's our tree. We can of course scale it. Let's select the tree and scale it as per our liking and the size of the plane. I think this looks okay. I'm going to add a couple of more trees to cover the entire plane. While adding a tree, you can have certain parameters you can tweak to give the variation to the tree and the leaf structure, okay? For example, if we go to the geometry, we have the random seed parameter here that will change the type of tree we are dealing with, and let's add certain leaves to it. So here are leaves, show leaves, and we can of course play around with the scale of leaves. I think this looks okay. Now that we have gotten 5 different kinds of trees here, all we need to do is duplicate these trees and place them all over the area. To give variation to it, we can of course play around with the rotation of the tree. So let's go ahead and duplicate the trees. I think this looks okay. I think we have a good amount of trees here. Now let's go ahead and add a camera. That would be Shift A, camera. Like we did in the last video, we are going to move the camera to this very position. For that we would move it in the -8 direction, and let's bring it up. So now let's animate the camera to see if we are interacting with the trees in any way. I think we would be interacting with this tree, so it would make sense if we could move this in this direction. Let's go ahead and actually duplicate certain trees. It looks a little more bland here. And now we can animate the camera. Go ahead and change the total number of frames to 120, and on the 0th frame let's go ahead and select the camera and add a keyframe. Here's our keyframe. On the 120th frame we'll change it to +8 and insert a keyframe. That should animate this entire thing. I like how it is interacting with the leaves and everything. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and extend this entire scene. So we have one single plane here. We need to create a 3x3 matrix kind of structure using this plane. So we would be doing that in a much more efficient way. Hide the camera here, click B and just select all the elements in the scene here. If we click M, that would give us the option to move all the elements to a new collection. Here's a new collection, and we'll actually base plane collection. So if you're familiar with the concepts of programming languages, the object-oriented programming, it's basically you create a class and you use that class and its variables to create multiple instances of that class. So that is exactly what we are going to do here. For that, again, we need to add collection instance, and here's the new collection instance which we created. Once we start moving it on the Y direction, click Control so that it snaps well, and let's go ahead and add another instance and keep doing this and cover this entire area. So we've created a 3x3 matrix of that very plane, and now it should give a long good perspective. Let's go back to the camera view and see how it is interacting. Okay, it looks good. The next part is shading and the lighting part. So we are going to select the first plane which we created, and we are going to add certain bumps to it. So let's select the plane. Let's hit tab. That would give us the option to edit. Go ahead and click W. That would give the option to subdivide, and we are going to subdivide it into 50 cuts. So that is, we are going to have 50 cuts, both horizontal and vertical. Now let's go back to the object mode. Under the modifiers, let's add a modifier called displace. Let's click on new. Let's decrease the strength for now. Let's keep it at minimum so that we can play around the strength later on. We get show texture in the texture tab. We can add a new texture. That would be clouds, and let's go ahead and decrease the depth all the way. We can play around with the size, that would give us the variation in the size of bumps we wish to have in our scene. Click W and shade smooth. That would make it smoother. So now we have a nice layer of detail, and now we are going to add a foggy kind of atmosphere to it. The way we can do that is by principled volume. Let's add a cube here. This is our cube. Let's scale it in factor of 8. Let's click M, add this cube to the base plane collection so that it replicates it. Go back to the camera view. We need to go to the shading area. Let's select the cube which we created, and for that we would be assigning a new material. We don't need the principled BSDF which gets assigned by default. We'll go ahead and delete that. We need a principled volume instead. Let's bring down the density a little bit. Let's keep it at 0.1. Let's first assign a color to the emission. I'm going to go with blue. So this is how it looks in the rendered view. To add a little more detail to the base plane, we'll try to add small puddles of water. So if we come back to our normal view, so now we can add a plane. Here is a plane. Let's scale it to the factor of 8. It is hidden below this surface, so we need to bring it a tad bit up so that we get the variation and the contact between the bumps which we created in the first step. And now we'll go ahead and play around with the material for this second plane which we created. Let's go to the shading part, and then again let's select the plane and assign a new material to it. That would give this principled BSDF. And here we need to bring the roughness all the way down. We need to bring up the transmission, a bump node that would give this bump. We also need a noise texture. So here's a noise texture, and if we click Ctrl T, this would give us the additional options for mapping and texture coordinate. Object to vector, and under this FAC to the height of bump. So that is what we are looking for. Under the render settings, let's make sure that the ambient occlusion, the bloom, the screen space reflections, and the motion blur are all enabled. It gives this nice watery kind of feel to it. Yeah, I think this looks good. And under the color management, let's make sure that the view transform is set to filmic and the look is set to very high contrast. This gives it that additional boost of color, and I think we are done with the base of our entire scene. So I think these parameters are pretty interesting. We can have certain keyframes set to the scale, the detail, the roughness, and the distortion of the noise texture, and that would give us a nice watery kind of wave kind of feel to it. elements. In the tutorial, it had a small neon flashy door, which had a nice contrasting shade to this. So we are going to try something similar. For that, let's go ahead and add a plane. So here's our plane. Let's enable this and let's bring it up and rotate it in the X direction to 90. We'll go ahead and add a modifier, which would be wireframe modifier. We just need the boundary for it, so we are just going to check the boundary part. Let's go ahead and assign a material to it. That would be emission material. So here's emission, and under the color, let's select burning red. Let's increase its and let's disable this. So our camera is basically passing through the frame. We want the frame to move with the camera. It's a pretty simple solution. We just need to associate the plane to camera movement. For that, what we'll do is we'll select the plane, we'll select the camera, and we'll go to the object, parent, object. And now the frame should also move with the camera movement, and it is. And now let's go ahead and render this. It's our first attempt, first shot. Let's see how it turns out to be. That would give us the idea to work on the variations of the parameters, the plane, the trees, additional objects which we want to add. To render it, we'll actually go to the output properties. Under the file format, we are going to select the FFmpeg format. In the encoding, we'll change from Matroska to MPEG-4, that is MP4. Under the output quality, we are going with perceptually lossless quality. Not bad for the first attempt. I think we've got the concept clear. We can of course have the variation with the plane, the objects which we are placing in the environment, and with the way camera moves, we can introduce certain other elements. So there were actually a couple of variations I wanted to try. First being importing a Mixamo character. Mixamo is a character library. You get to select different kinds of characters and different kinds of animations, and you can download that and straight up import into Blender. Pretty straightforward process, but the issue I faced was with a character not being able to walk. The character was actually stuck in a single place. The next thing which I wanted to try was introduce some neon glowing particles. That again is pretty intensive on CPU and GPU. So these are some renders which I could pull off. Yeah, it's 3 in the morning. I think I'm done for the day. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.